I'm going to let John Santa lead it off. He's got specific questions about Eli Heidenreich and Alex Teska. John is from Pittsburgh. Go ahead, John.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it. Coach, I just wanted to ask you about those two guys. Starting with Alex, I guess. What are your impressions of him as a kid, and how he's doing so well for you guys so far?
Super excited about him. He's a great young man, a great work ethic. Kind of what our program is all about, just the way he handles his business, the way he goes to work, how he handles himself. He's got a chance to be an exceptional player for us. I think he's a special talent. I think we kind of knew that coming out of spring football, and he's a young man that we're going to find different ways to get him to football. He needs a certain amount of touches every game. He's an integral part of our game plan moving forward for sure.
What happens with Memphis here? I'm sure they're not trying to see him for a while. He kind of went off there.
He did. He played really well. It was kind of game I've been expecting him to have. It was no surprise to me, obviously, but we need more of those type games out of him for sure.
Right. Same kind of idea with Eli. Obviously different position with slot back, but what are you seeing out of him so far?
A lot of similar things, right? Caught our attention during spring football. Knew he was talented, as a freshman here. He's embraced his role at slot. He's a bigger slot body for us, which is good. Really athletic. Unusually get two guys like that from the same place, but we're glad we've got them for sure. With both really good football players, a lot of good years ahead for both of them.
Okay. All right, thanks, Coach.
You got it.
All right, Wags.
Hey, Coach. Why don't you talk a little bit about South Florida? They were picked second to last in the preseason poll for the American Athletic Conference, and right now they're not looking like a bottom feeder team in the AAC.
No, they're certainly not going to finish second to last. I'll tell you that. Super impressed with their football team. What Coach Golich has been able to do in a short amount of time. In recruiting and restructuring his roster and galvanizing that football team. They look like a team functioning at a really high clip on Saturday against Rice. I think we're kind of catching them as they're getting greased up. And so they're a scary football team. Offensively, what they do schematically is very challenging. The tempo at which they do it with, how they do it. Some really talented players, starting with the quarterback. Very talented at running back, big up front on the O-line, and has some really good skill at wideout as well. So they're scary on offense. I think the quarterback is playing really well. Defensively, just their athleticism stands out. Very, very athletic team, very disruptive defense. They're in the top 10 or so in the country and tackles for a loss and sacks, and so create a lot of negative plays. So they're playing really well on both sides of the football, getting better every week. I thought they made some monumental improvements, the last 2 weeks in particular. So it's going to be a great challenge for us. They're well coached, they're talented, and they're getting better every week, which is scary.
You're muted.
Obviously, the performance this past Saturday was alarming. The offensive performance with all that yardage. What exactly did you see? I mean, I caught part of that game as I was flipping channels Saturday, but watching the highlights, a lot of explosive plays.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference in what I saw Saturday, the quarterback was very accurate. Up until that point, he'd missed some throws that I'm sure that they would like to complete when they had guys open. Had some questions about his ability to throw the deep ball accurately, but those questions were erased. After watching Saturday, he was on point. I think the timing between him and the receivers and has gotten a lot better. They really get behind Rice, who I think has a pretty good defense, despite how many points USF scored. but they connect on a lot of deep balls, and with that offense, if they're able to do that, they're going to be deadly. But they're balanced. They take what you give them, and very effective running the football. If you try to take that away, then they'll try to throw it over your head, which they have the ability to do. So just again, I think we're catching them as they're kind of they're getting greased up pretty good right now, from a timing standpoint, and I think they're all still getting to know each other probably a little bit too. I think that you can see that taking place as well.
So do you think it's the classic example of what you can do through the portal? I mean, this team was 1-11 last year. They had 4 straight losing seasons, and you'd be bringing 21 transfers. I see kids from Texas, Florida. The receiver that had a big day on Saturdays from Wagner. Is this just an example of how you can make over a roster overnight?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. You can flip a roster, but to get them to play together and function as a unit is the challenge. But I think they've got really good coaches on that staff, and they've been able to do that. And got a ton of respect for Coach Golish, and I think Coach Orlando is he's one of the best defense coordinators in the country. He's proven that different places that he's been, and they've just done a great job getting that team together, and they're playing complementary football right now.
I'll pass it off to someone else.
Scott Wyckoff.
Yeah, Coach, going back to Coach Golish, he's got a pretty good body of work that I know you've seen both at UCF, but also what you're able to go back and look at Tennessee. What is it about his style of offense that creates this ability to score so many points and put up so many yards?
Yeah, he's a really good offensive mind. It's proven that he's a good play caller, but he's been around some really good football coaches and some really good systems. I'm sure he's grown and picked up on a lot of that stuff and kind of put his own wrinkles to it and his own stamp on it. And I think it's like we tell our guys, it's not what we do, it's how we do it. And what they do is challenging, but how they're doing it right now, they're doing it at a really high level. And so I think he's done a great job with that football team, and just they have a confidence and a swagger about them, the way they're playing right now. And that's credit to him and what he's been able to do, and instill confidence in what they're doing.
Do you get a little sense of a swagger and a confidence for your team coming off the performance against Memphis and having the ability to build on that over the bye week?
I wouldn't call it swagger, maybe a slight bit of confidence and what I think we can do, and just seeing how close we are to doing some things really, really well. Obviously, it's hard to build swagger and confidence after you lose a game, but certainly we took steps in the right direction, and I think we're really close. And I think Coach Golish would say the same thing about them the first 3 weeks. You saw glimpses of it; they were close and kind of had a breakthrough this past weekend, and I'm hoping that we can do the same thing against them.
How important is it to really establish your persona at home, especially in these conference games?
Very important. Coming to Annapolis needs to be a very difficult place to play. These are hollow grounds, and our guys take a ton of pride in the way we play here at home and how we do things, and so it's really important. And every game is, but certainly first conference game at home, it's a big deal.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, Scott.
Pete Medhurst.
Coach, one of the biggest misnomers about the Heupel offense is their willingness to run the football if they're able to do so. As you guys start to break down some of their trends, are you seeing the same thing here, particularly with a quarterback whose confidence continues to rise seemingly with every snap for them?
Yeah. I think you see a lot of tempo teams, a lot of teams that go fast, a lot of teams like to throw the football. They can do so stubbornly, and that's the beautiful thing about their offense is they're not stubborn about it. If you're going to let them run the football, that's what they're going to do. They're going to take what you give them, and I think that's the great thing about what they do offensively. They spread you out. They kind of make you define yourself a little bit with what you're doing defensively, and they try to take advantage of that. But they're, like I said, very well balanced. The quarterback, I think, he's a really, really good player. He can make the throws that he needs to make, and he can certainly beat you with his feet. Being a really good athlete, and so like I said, they're scary all around. We've got really good running backs. They're big up front, and they're skilled enough at wideout to run by you. So it's a scary offense to face, and it's going to be a huge challenge for us.
I was going to say, for a freshman, the greatest thing you can give them is just playing time and reps. Is that just a case of where week by week, when you watch each game, and I've watched 2 of them in full, where you just see a guy that just seems to grasp a little bit more and a little bit more each and every week, but also knows he's got his feet when he needs them to make an explosive off-schedule play?
Yeah, it's very apparent when you watch the progression and you watch him week to week, just how much better he's playing, how much more confidence that he's getting.
How difficult is 0 to deal with on the defensive side?
Very much. Yeah, like I said, they're really athletic on defense across the board. I think Coach Orlando does some pretty creative things, bring pressure a bunch of different ways. They move the front a lot. They're multiple in the back end of what they do, and so really challenging what they do schematically on both sides of the football, and they're doing it well and doing it through personnel.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Pete.
All right, we'll make another trip around. John, Santa.
Oh, sorry about that. Thanks, Coach. With these, I'm obviously focusing on Alex and Eli with my story. With these 2, is there any hesitation with them being sophomores and giving them the balls as much as you can?
Any hesitation?
Yeah, any hesitation about that, or they pretty well good to go?
Yeah, not at all. I think, like I mentioned earlier, we want to get Alex the ball more, and Eli is certainly a guy that we're not afraid to hand the ball off to either. When he's done some really good things, and he's been really good without the ball in his hands, from a blocking standpoint. And obviously, he's got really good ball skills, can catch the ball at the backfield, and is a versatile slot, the kind of size that we're looking for. And so, yeah, no hesitation at all with obviously either one of those guys.
All right, thanks.
Flags.
Coach, how important is tempo going to be for this, and maybe ball control? I mean, there's dramatic difference in how many plays Navy runs as compared to South Florida.
Yeah, well, I think they're rolling pretty fast right now. I think they're the fastest team in the country, to my knowledge, and that's not going to change when they come to play us. I think they're going to be who they are, and so it obviously becomes very, very important for us to hold on to the football offensively, to take care of the football, to be able to grind it out, get first downs, finish in the red zone, which is something we've not been great at, in these first 3 games. So hoping to be much, much better at that, and we're going to have to have a chance to win on Saturday.
What is the status of Jacob Busick? I believe he got hurt toward the end of the Memphis game.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure that out a little bit. He hurt his bicep, and he's obviously not healthy right now. So we're kind of working through all that. That's really as much as I feel comfortable saying about Busick right now.
In terms of being back home, I mean, obviously this is a weird situation with only playing 3 games this far into the season. How have you got 2 straight home games? How important is this to kind of get your season rolling? Like you said, you play a game and then you stop. You play a game and then you stop. Yeah. Now you're going to start playing a series of games, but you got 2 at home before you go out on the road.
Yeah. Now we kind of start getting into a normal season routine. Wags is what you're saying, and it's really important. It's really good after kind of a weird schedule that we've had to have 2 consecutive games at home, 2 conference games, and so we're excited about being at home, and I think that's an advantage for us, and looking forward to getting into more of a normal routine as we move forward.
Thanks,
Bill.
One note on USF: they were number 1 in the country last week in plays run per game. They fell to 4th after this week, but that was because they were up big and they salted away the 4th quarter and stopped playing what they normally have. But So for all intents and purposes, yeah, they're number one. Scott Wyckoff.
American Athletic Conference coach, another week, another quarterback who can sling it. Your defensive backfield, though, is really grown up together against these quarterbacks in recent years. Do you get a sense of confidence and determination from them of the task at hand and knowing if they do what they do right, that they can really take on these top quarterbacks?
I do. And I think we've, I said before the season started, that was one of our most improved units. It was our back end. And I think you've seen that. I think we certainly have to tackle better in the back end than we have. But what we've not done is give up a ton of big X plays in the pass game. We've been able to keep the ball in front of us for the most part. And I think we're playing well back there. Certainly some things that we need to do better moving forward, especially against quarterbacks like this. But I feel pretty good about our secondary right now.
I know last week we talked a little bit about special teams and kicking. How has that gone during the bye week, getting a little chance to see the guys kick a little bit more?
Good. I think, I said before the season started that we had 2 kickers, and I still feel that way. And Nate had a really good week last week. And, I said we were going to open that up and let those guys compete. And we'll continue to do that this week. And I think Riley's hitting the ball as well as anybody is, punting it. So feel good about our special teams and where we're at and where we practice, last couple of weeks.
Great. Thank you.
Pete.
Just to piggyback on what Bill asked about the choppiness of the schedule, I mean, do we underrate that, Brian, not just for you guys as coaches, but for the players and trying to establish a rhythm, as trying to establish confidence? Is that hard with that type of a choppy schedule, even though you preach all the right things, you try to practice as much as possible? I mean, is that something that is hard to establish a rhythm when you're playing such a choppy schedule?
Yeah, I think so a little bit. It's just the tricky part is the kind of the science behind it, how much you practice, how much rest you guys need to get during those buys. But yeah, it's tricky. It's been hard to get into a routine. I think we've done a good job in managing it. We changed the way that we practice this year in our weekly schedule. So you kind of add that to the mix, and it's been a little bit of a challenge, but I think our players have handled it really well, and our staff's handled it, and I think we've made good decisions as far as what we've done with our guys from that we practiced and the volume and the pace of things. And it's a long season for us, so we've got to be really smart about the way that we do things, and especially moving forward as we start to get into more of a normal routine. But a little bit of a challenge, but I think we've handled it well.
You've had some players that have probably suffered some adversity in their play, maybe for the first time in their college careers. Are you enjoying and seeing the things you need to see individually from them in terms of a bounce back, or are you having to see some of your position coaches maybe light a little bit more of a fire to say, hey, that's over, you got to pick things back up and you got to go? Yeah,
well, I think it's a little bit of both. I always say this, but this year's no exception. We've got really resilient young men in our program, and that's been the case in everything that we've gone through here in the last 4 years. And so that hasn't changed. I'm really proud about the way that we've practiced, the way that we've handled that adversity, and the way we've taken coaching and some hard coaching. And we got to obviously do some things better. We got to coach better. But we're always looking to find solutions. We're not focused on the problems around here. And so we're always moving forward, always trying to get better, and couldn't be more pleased the way that our players have attacked things the last couple of weeks.
From a defensive play calling standpoint, and obviously when you all add additional pressure to just your guys up front, how much of a challenge and how much does it change things, if at all, when you face a guy that can move off of his target as opposed to the guy that as soon as he gets back there and plants, that's where he's going to be, because this guy may not be in that spot very long?
Yeah, it's difficult to game plan for a quarterback like that. You always have to be able to account for him. There's certain things that you would do against a quarterback that wasn't mobile that you just can't do against him. So it's always a challenge when you're playing against an athletic quarterback that can throw it, because you have to account for him. There's certain things you can't do with your coverage. Can't, for example, it's tough to play man coverage when you got all your eyes turned away from the quarterback sometimes, and so certain situations, yes, it is a challenge, and you have to be cognizant of it with how you call the game as the play caller.
Is a spy a cliche or is it real?
Oh, it's real. It certainly is. Now, whether or not your spy player can tackle the guy if he gets out of the open, that's the question. You see teams doing that, and it's still hard to get him on the ground. So, yeah, you always have to account for his ability to run the football, no question. And not just when he scrambles, Pete, but on boots when they get him out of the pocket and some signed quarterback run stuff that they do a really good job of. So they do a great job of getting the ball to their players and creating mismatches and taking advantage of numbers in the box, whether you're trying to when you're playing coverage and you're light in the box, or maybe you're not light in the box, but they create another gap. The quarterback run stuff. So do a lot of really challenging things offensively.